You have radio, you have DVDs, you can download movies, all these things you can do. But they think they're Republicans with their pastoral thing, and the strictly Muslim people, they, basically a miserable life when the Muslims ruled the Middle East.
Why?
Well, because they basically, everybody was in, there was slavery. Mm-hmm. Women were basically kept, like they say, chattel to the men. There were no rights, and they would behead people, cut people's hands off.
That doesn't sound very good to me.
No, but that's what they want to return to, because they think that was the greatest time. But these are people that lived in this time, thinking that a time that never existed. Well, they actually believe this thing. 50 virgins. Yeah. That never.
But see, that's a way that they're in common with people here, is that they believe that what is it? The grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
It was always better than before.
It was always better. I remember here's a guy. Great actor, Academy Award-winning actor, wrote "The Green Grass of Home," and I'll be home for Christmas, even if I'm there only in my mind. The problem was that he was injured World War II. His friends went back to Pittsburgh, and they looked. There was no grass anywhere. There'd never been any grass. The guy lived in among coal slack. There's the dump. That's basically the dump they jump out after they do the coal mining and the processing, and that never existed. And his I'll be home for Christmas. They never had a Christmas in his home. It was all in his mind. Everything, all the poetry he wrote, he would tell to the soldiers in the foxholes. None of it ever existed, but that's how he remembered it. And it never happened. And that's, unfortunately, that's Republicans and strict Muslims remember something that never happened. It's in a book somewhere. It's just, like the Bible is basically a lot of prophecies. It's not really written history. It's more what's going to. Some of it's history, some of it's just basically what people think is going to happen. They're all thinking about things that never were. There's nothing written in stone that says that 5,000 years ago the Muslims had the greatest entertainment empire in the world, and there was much leisure time for all Muslims. Well, they had slaves back in those days, and they enslaved other Muslims besides. Let's put it this way: no matter what you want to say, the Jews and the Muslims are the same people. It's just different tribes.
Different tribes are siblings.
Yeah, they're different tribes. Like the
brothers and sisters.
The Battlestar Galactica has to do with like the 12 tribes leading out. What happened was World War II had to do as much with one tribe of Jews killing off other tribes of Jews in Germany. Anybody? Okay, let's see. Hitler's name was Alois. He's a Jew. Goebbels, Jew. Eichmann, Jew. Himmler, Jew. The place where his whole organization was full of Jews. The Waffen-SS, Jews. The people that were killing Jews were Jews. The Muslims are killing Muslims. This is how it works, folks. In this country, they only eat their young. Yeah. No, but we're getting ready. At least most of the people I've been listening to that know what they're talking about. Well, we screw Sean Hannity, and we basically say, with the people over, Tom Brokaw basically is getting old. All the people, this is going to be good. We're going to see democracy come to that area. No, because the people that are smart says what happens is the people that truly believe in democracy start the situation. Then they can't. It's like it gets out of control, and people have to come in that actually can control the situation. The people that control the situation are the thugs and the goons. They are they're the little brown shirts with the swastikas. They're the ones that can control the riots. They're in all of those countries. They're looking to the military for guidance. The military happens to be anti-Christian, anti-Semitic.
So guess what that's going to mean?
Yeah, you're going to have leadership. Remember, we helped kick out a guy in Pakistan that was pro-Christian, even though he was a Muslim. So what did they do? They immediately elected a really Muslim group that basically, they're going to kick us out of Pakistan, folks. because you know they can get $1.5 billion from the Iranians if they, because Pakistan borders Iran too. So, but you're going to see there. Most of the people I was listening to last night and this morning are all talking about the next war has already started.
I know.
And it's starting for the same reason the first war started and the second war started. It's got to do with the world is broke. People are hungry.
Is that why the other one started?
Yeah, the world is broke. No one has any. Remember, World War II. Everybody was in World War I. Everybody was hungry. They were starving. I mean, look at what the Soviet Union fell because of starvation.
War. And part of it is the poor people always think that the other people have the money,
yeah.
And part of it is in many cases they're actually true.
Yeah.
Because there's such a large difference.
There is a large difference, but the people at the top often don't. The people at the top are sometimes basically at the. Okay, I know a lot of people that were wealthy that aren't wealthy anymore, but they still live like they were wealthy because they have credit cards and live in a nice place. Mm-hmm. But eventually you have to pay the credit card bills. You can't just keep paying the. Well, because Obama screwed things up so that people don't. If they're living on a limited income and living well, you can't put on your credit card now because the minimums are all up on everything. So, but what happens is, what is peace? Peace is the time between one war and another war. And how do you make a society grow? War. You solve the problems with the starving by starting a war, because a war kickstarts industries. War kickstarts food production. War kickstarts innovation. Wars are basically, it also downsizes populations. When you lose 30-40 million adult males, that means there's not as many males for making little children, so therefore you don't have as many mouths to feed. Mm-hmm. So the war is a necessary evil for population control. I mean, was it?
I know that sounds like survival of the fittest.
Yeah,
you know, with the animals and everything.
I think the UN actually said that Genghis Khan was the most green leader in the history of our nation.
Why?
Well, because they said he reduced the carbon footprint for the entire world while he was ruler of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
that's an unusual way of putting it.
Yeah, but how did he do it? He said he killed like 40 million people.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And that killed the 40 million people, slaughtered the animals that they had.
So he was the greenest,
because
they said
he reduced like 400 million or 400 billion tons of carbon and stuff by killing all those people, but made him a green. And that's how it works, because okay, what happens is we pollute the atmosphere with cannon fire and gunfire. But the stuff that we pollute the atmosphere with cannon fire and gunfire goes into the soil. The soil then reacts to those nitrates, and there's god-awful growth everywhere where there's war.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The only thing that prevents growth is nuclear weapons.
Huh.
But
that's kind of interesting.
Remember that plants use nitrates to grow. A basis of gunpowder and explosive is nitrates. So when that stuff explodes, you tend to have more rain. The rain sinks the nitrates into the soil, and eventually you have an explosion of growth. I mean, when you go to battlefields, those battlefields haven't been manicured. Those battlefields just grew that way.
You know, they're always green.
Always green. Yeah. Well, because they've got humans. Humans provide fertilizer. You know, everything you need to make things grow is in a human body. You have nitrates, you have the human body, you cause growth. So you look at the fact that war is a necessary evil to control population size. So
actually, we're going to get some comments on that one.
No, it just look back.
But if you look back at, evolution, history,
evolution and revolution, Beatles, going to have an evolution. That's a revolution. No, so it's. I don't condone them. I think that that you don't have to do it, but nobody ever wants to. Okay, there are two sets of people that are never listened to in a time like we're going through right now. The very young and the very old. Mm-hmm. The very old have lived through it. The very young don't want to live through it. You end up with the people. You end up with the grandchildren. Mm-hmm. Who basically think they know more.
Well, don't they always think they know more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if they manage to live to be my age, they realize that we made a mistake. Lots of mistakes are made. I mean, you know, right now they're saying, well, you know, like the United States, we're racist because the reason why the Republicans who took control is because they're all racist, and because if we didn't have, they want Obama removed, and the only way to turn our country pure is to remove Obama. So they're getting ready for country. I mean, I knew it. I mean, like I said, I grew up in an area where, you know, I had, truck farmers lived on both sides of my house. You know, they did really well, those families, but they were, I mean, we're talking 60 years ago, they knew the race war was coming. They said it's going to happen, and they can't do anything else but happen because the guy said my grandchildren are going to want. They said they're going to have everything, but they're going to want what the guy across the street has, because his children were already looking at what the guy across the street had. You know, and it didn't make any difference. The guy across the street worked his butt off to get it. They figured, you know. And these guys weren't slaves. These people came here on their own. They were not slaves, folks. They migrated to this country from England, you know, and they were never slaves in England. They were just business people in England. They came over here, so they did not know from slavery. But they look at the people across the street, and they would, you know, well, that guy's got a Rolls Royce, and we've only got, you know, a Stanley steamer. But
they probably worked their butt off for that.
Yeah, their father worked their butt. The fathers worked like my father, they worked their rear ends off so the children could have more, but the children didn't have enough, you know. And then, I mean, I've seen some of the grandchildren. The grandchildren today are the people that are basically the activists. They're wanting that we should be given because of our color.
You know,
but they never were slaves.
It makes me think about where activists come from.
Yeah, they come from rich. I don't think there are poor activists.
Yeah, they usually come from wealthy parents.
They come from, I think, the landed gentry produces many offspring that thinks that everything is evil. Yeah.
And they usually didn't work for it.
Yeah, I mean, okay, look at how, okay, here's the thing that's in common with the riots in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Yemen, in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Turkey, in Saudi Arabia, in Spain, in Portugal, Greece, France. They're all well-dressed young people. They're all well-dressed young people. Doesn't that say thing? Well-dressed and young. How do you know if you have nothing? I mean, because I knew the people after the Great Depression, and they didn't have things. I mean, they're like the homeless people that are wandering the streets out here. The homeless are never going to riot. The people that are going to raise up and riot are the people that are basically, their grandparents lived up in Brentwood, and they walk among the homeless because they emphasize with their problems. Well, they could simply give them the money to get out of being a homeless person. That's not. Wealthy people contribute time, but they do not contribute money generally. So it's their money. But
you see that.
The grandchildren.
Over and over again.
You know, I mean, the grandchildren historically are pains in the asses in the history of the world. It's just, look, all you got to do is go back to, back to Socrates, you know. I fear for the future of our nation when you look at our children today.
Ooh.
And it's historically, it is. Everybody has a quote or something like that, but it's more like the grandchildren. The grandparents build the wealth. The children basically squander the wealth, and the grandchildren want to have more than their parents had, and they don't want to work for it. At least the children had to work. They may not have wanted to work, but they had to work. The grandchildren don't work. They're the jet setters.
Interesting. So you can kind of tell what generation of where the money came from based on how they're acting.
Yeah, and remember, like I said, the people that are riding in the street generally have money. The people that aren't riding in the street don't have money. Because they can't afford to riot.
Yeah, they got to be at work.
You can't afford to miss that day's work because you don't get paid. It's just like in my family, like 1904 we started in the entertainment industry, and my grandmother and my father knew Al Jolson, and they also knew let's see, Grand Old Flag, the Cohens, George M. Cohan. George M. Cohan was talking to Al Jolson, and Jolson said, you know, I never understood why the show had to go on Well, Cohen and Joseph are both Jews, and then it's how simple. We don't get paid unless it goes on. And that was a good read. That was an epiphany moment when the light bulb comes on.
The show must go on.
Because you don't get paid if it doesn't. If you don't work, you don't get paid, and if you don't get paid, your wife gets pissed off about you not bringing money to get for the food, folks. It's just like that bling moment, like the women are more likely to buy a television set because of its bling than they are for its value. No. Yeah, you be a Muslim male that don't bring your check home because you're out riding and see what your Muslim wife is going to do to your head. The same thing that the same thing an English wife would do, an American wife, a Canadian wife, a Latino wife, an Asian wife. It's go bring me that check home.
Yeah. You gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, and then they say, but where the kids? Oh, I think they're burning the Egyptian of antiquities. Well, okay, but you go to work. That's how it works in this world. So, also, an example, I can walk through neighborhoods that she could never ever go through.
That's definitely true.
Because of my age. The funny thing is that the Latinos, the Afro-Americans, they basically respect age.
They respect the elders.
They respect elders, but their grandchildren don't. Their grandchildren respect nobody, and there's somewhere along the line they've lost the respect. But you can basically, like I got knocked off my bicycle one day over in a barrio, and we're talking all the older people come running out to see son of a bitchin' little bastards, in their cars. That's their grandchildren. He said, we have nothing but trouble. All they do is up all day long, they harass people in the bike lanes. And they're out there making certain that I'm all right. They said, well, we know who they are. Do you want us to call their grandparents? Not their parents. They say, do you want us to call their grandparents? Because the grandparents would go over and they go over to their kid's house, and the kids basically get it from the grandparents, and then they'll hit their kids, we've told you about that. But then they don't do anything. So elders respect elders. The children of the old respect them, but the grandchildren respect nothing today.
I know, that part is a shame.
And it has nothing to do with race. It's just the grandchildren respect nothing. So, but you're going, like I said, it's just dangerous. I see what's going to happen because I'm old enough and I know enough.
It's not good.
It's not good. It's going to get worse. We happen to have a president that's what you want to. Okay, here's the historical thing about the history of the United States. Democrats start wars, Republicans end them. The war in Iraq was basically over when Obama came in, and basically, but what it is because Obama thinks that he is the greatest. Muslims worship him, that he can basically solve the problems by pulling all the troops back. No, as the more troops pull back, the bigger the problems are becoming.
And part of it is because they believe he's sympathetic to them.
Yeah.
They push further.
That's right. And you'd think that South Korea would exist today if we didn't have like 36,000 soldiers sitting between the North Koreans and South Koreans.
You have that many?
That's very little. We used to have like hundreds of thousands, but Obama keeps training them back. No, as soon as they feel that they've hit the magic moment of troops, the North Koreans are going to float across in the south. You'd think the Japanese would be nice. The Japanese people are not nice people. I mean, they're an imperial country. They still worship the emperor. If the emperor of Japan would say slice the throat of every American, you would have everyone my age slicing the throat of every American out there. That's how it works. Yeah. You'd think that if our troops weren't in Germany, the Russians wouldn't still be sitting in East Germany. That's the way it works. The reason why we have peace is because American troops are sitting everywhere. But everywhere American troops are pulling out, there's problems.
We're having problems.
Yep. And as more troops pull out, more problems. It reaches the thing right now is sort of like this, but when it's like that,
the tipping point.
The tipping point is going to be like sitting on top of a thing. When it swings, when they think it swings the other direction, all hell is going to break out. They're going to blow every single well in the Muslim world. Every well is going to be blown.
Well, I guess you know, some people's wishes will come true, and then the oil will go up.
Oh God, yeah.
The oil will go up, and then those really green cars that nobody wants to drive.
Yeah, they're gonna have them. They're not gonna be able to drive because their green is gonna be so far out. What happens is we're going to have to hit our natural resources, which most people say are probably the greatest in the world.
And they're trying not to use them.
Yeah, we're not trying not to use them, but I mean, they say right now we can, you know, if the statistics are right, considering growth, that we can go another 30 years on our resources and not have to tap anybody else's. 30 years. In 30 years, times will change. You will have green vehicles and green energy.
Yeah, by that time we would.
Because it's got to do. We're not really going too far for things. You can have green energy if you have infrastructure. It takes decades to build infrastructure, but until the infrastructure is there, you can't build the infrastructure on green energy. You have to build the infrastructure on non-green energy. And the green people can't. Basically, the green people have their idea of utopia is a time when there were no automobiles, there were no factories, and there weren't as many people. Geez, that sounds an awful lot like everybody else's idea of utopia. Mm-hmm. What do you do with the people that currently exist? You have to get rid of them. That's the only way you can go back to your utopia. So, I mean, I also had a person once, I had a teacher that basically thought was somewhat of a lunatic. He said, you know, probably Atlantis existed. Probably everything that everybody has ever said existed. But war destroyed it. And they destroyed all relations that anything ever happened. They said all those mutated animals that just popped up, well, probably nuclear war caused them. You know, he said those great civilizations that people always talk about, they probably existed. Those visitations from outer space was probably somebody flying from one city to another city that still existed. He said all happens is that every so often everybody destroys everything, and then the Earth starts all over again. And somewhere buried under hundreds of tons of, or maybe thousands of feet of material, you know, there's a civilization there, there's a civilization there, there's a civilization there. Because remember, they'll tell you once the world was more water than it is, far more water than it is now. And at another time it was far more land than it is now. So basically water tends to hide a lot, and land tends to hide a lot. So.
Ooh, now since you have a lot of food for thought.
Yeah, but we're gonna keep on this until next time. This is Oldecam.
And this is not a spring chicken. We're here yesterday, today, and tomorrow for more information.
You can go to www.monkeybubble.net on the net.
And wherever you're watching us, subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, and thank you once again for over 40 million links on the internet.